Welcome back to the Profit School by MeasureU Podcast. This is the AI First Edition, a conversation between my partner, Jeff Sauer, and myself. And today we are talking about, guess what, how to use AI. But this time it's about how to use AI to actually stay focused in some different ways that we are exploring, how we can actually use AI in our personal as well as professional lives to make sure we're focusing on the right things at the right time. So without further ado, Mr. Sauer, as is our tradition, when you're thinking about staying focused, when you're thinking about how you might be able to use AI for that, maybe how you've done it, before in the past, what sort of comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think focus is a big thing for all of us, right? As an entrepreneur, there's a million different ideas. And if you don't stay focused, you don't really have anything to get, you can't get anything done. You don't have anything to show for it. Mm-hmm. And so I look at the AI element of it two different ways. One is that you can do more, you can be more productive with AI because you can do more with less. So you can actually get those things completed because you're using AI. The other one is having AI coach you on what to focus on, to actually use it as the Einstein on your shoulder to tell you what you should be doing. And so those are the two different ways that I see that you can use AI to stay focused that I would be thinking about. How about you?
Yeah, when it's focus for me is that word where I think it's what do I need to do right now that's going to be the highest leverage possible action to get me the biggest benefit in my life. You know what I mean? For the rest of my life, kind of like, we're going to do right now. It's the absolute right thing to do. And how do I do that in the absolute right way? Like, that's kind of what I think about when it comes with focus. And I think, to be honest, it's even changed a little bit for me, which we can talk about. But that's where focus initially was for me, is like, what is the thing I need to do? How do I need to do it? When do I need to do it? And then just get it done. Right. And kind of figuring out that, because there was a lot of pressure to do that. And before AI, I think it was just whatever you had on your to-do list or your task list or your Asana or your ClickUp or whatever the thing is, right? That list on the refrigerator that you keep meaning to get to one day, that isn't getting done, trying to figure that out. So that's kind of my perspective, if that makes sense on that.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I think that we can get into strategies for both, right? So so ultimately this unveils, there's two different things. It's productivity boost, which I think that's pretty much what most people think of AI when they think about it as a productivity boost. Like, how do I get somebody to write an email for me? How do I get somebody to design a web page? Or how do I do anything? How do I edit this podcast with AI? So we can maybe talk a little bit about that in tactics, but I think that ultimately that is the strategy of AI and how most people use it. So I don't think we need to get too crazy into the defining of strategies, but this idea that you're touching on of like a clarity coach, of somebody who can actually give you clear answers. It can be your advisor, it can be a parent, it can be the wise grandfather, it can be the village elder. Yeah. It can be all these different things in one spot, and using that as a way so that you can go forward is a great topic. I think some people use AI for things like therapy, but are people really using it to prioritize? And then you and I think, are uniquely positioned because we both have done this before, and we both have improved and gotten better and had better disposition because we do it. Yeah. And so you're probably the furthest along on that. So maybe we can get into your way of doing this, and then I can share a little bit about mine and where I've failed, because I am not as far along as you, and I'll tell people why once we get to that part.
Sure. So for me, it's definitely been a journey, right? As with all things, you just sort of have to start where you start and you figure it out as you go. And the trick is just to keep moving, right? But with AI, I was initially doing, I think, the standard stuff, like, here's the 12 things I have to do today, make sure I get all this stuff done. And I could kind of use it like a almost like an accountability coach. It was kind of the original version of what I was trying to do with it. And it was good because it would sort of keep me up to date and, let me know, like, for example, I had one where I wasn't setting a doctor's appointment to get my annual physical scheduled. I kept delaying that. And the AI at one point was like, hey, listen, you got 15 minutes coming up in your schedule. Maybe just do that call real fast, or just go set that up really quickly. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? Cause it wasn't top of mind, and it made it top of mind for me and said, oh, here's where you do it. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I'm gonna do that right now. It was just, I recognized the answer, right? I recognized the answer, which was cool because it said, hey, how about this? And I'm like, yes, that looks good. As opposed to me having to create the answer, right? Which is, when do I need to do this? Well, I got to figure it out and plan it out. Now you have to create a bunch of stuff. But if AI is like, hey, do these two pieces fit together? They seem like they fit together. I'm like, yes, they fit together. In fact, it's already done. That's how fast it was, right? To get that stuff done. So I've used it for that. And that's kind of where it started. And then I went on a I try to get like a personal retreat once a year where I can just get out, be by myself, and think through stuff. And I just love that peace and quiet of kind of getting out of the hurricane that is the regular, day-to-day life and business and everything else, to just sort of sit and reflect on stuff. And this time I did it with AI. Like, I had AI with me probably 5 or 6 hours a day. And I used it a lot. And now when I say I use it, I don't use it like just going to the LLM and like starting to talk to things. I think that is okay. But that's about 3% of what AI can give you if you use it that way, in my opinion. I think you're missing 97% of the goodness of it. But what I would do is I would create these coaches. I would create coaches that knew how to work with high performing entrepreneurs that were a pain in the butt to work with and super stubborn and were always right. You know what I mean? Like, they were made for me. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm interacting with AI to build it in the way that it is the best version of Mercer at all times, who happens to know everything about everything because he's got access to that database that is the world of information, right? So I'm interacting with it, not so that it can tell me what I need to do. It's so that I can tell me what I need to do, right? Because I'm working my own personal development, my own professional growth through the tool of AI. And in that process of using that tool, just like you could write out a journal using a pen and paper and still access different thoughts that you didn't realize you had as you are journaling, it's kind of the same thing with AI. Is AI in that very, very much that same way. So as it's reflecting thoughts back to me, I'm sitting there going, oh, that's actually cool. I've never really thought about that before. I didn't think about it like in this way. And I can get some perceptual shifts from it. So when I started seeing that happen, for me, that's the biggest payoff, because a lot of the symptoms of business or personal, whatever the issues are that we think are our problems, almost always are symptoms initially, because that's what you see first. You don't see the problem. You see the symptoms bubbling up telling you there's a problem, but people see the symptom of it regardless. Like, say it's business if it's low sales, or personal if you've got relationship issues, or whatever the thing is. If you're seeing that as a symptom, it's because there's something bigger underneath that's causing that. But if you just try to solve the symptom, that's all AI is going to help you do, because it's not in control, right? It's not going to say, well, actually, you should be asking this question, unless you say, are there better questions I should be asking, right? Unless you give it that sort of space. So I started doing that, and I started kind of expanding out its capabilities as I was interacting with it. And that's what would start to go like, well, let's talk about all these different symptoms. And then what's the common denominator? Oh, it seems like something like this is caused by something like that. Let's talk about this, right? And then that's where it got into some real meat and potatoes of some stuff. And I'll give you one that what surprised me that I don't know if I told you. I think I did, but if not, surprise. So live on the podcast with everybody else watching. So the most interesting, one of the most interesting impacts I had during that personal retreat was when I was talking about the business with just the business of business. And MeasureU, because I focus mostly on that brand, right? I'm obviously, we're still involved with ProfitSchool and everything else, but I sort of focus on the MeasureU brand. You sort of focus on the ProfitSchool brand, and we help each other out that way. And because I was thinking about the MeasureU stuff, I was going through and I'm explaining everything that's going on and giving all of the symptoms. And in the AI, again, this sort of coach that I created sort of comes back and says, oh, interesting that you resent MeasureU so much. And it was like a gut punch. At first I was like, what the? And then I was like, it's right. Mm-hmm. It was instantly right. I knew it because I recognized the answer. And I was like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. Why do I feel like that? Immediately. Why do I feel like that? That's silly. Why would I feel like I didn't know I felt like that. And so the AI brought this thing. It was like, oh, all these patterns are patterns of resentment. So that's the thing we're trying to solve for. It knew that, right? Because it was made to know that. So it was like, oh, find these patterns, these problems are this, solve this problem of resentment, make that. And really what I love about problems like that is awareness is the solution. You know, you go, oh, you resent the business. And they go, yeah, well, that's not a good way to grow a business. How can you grow a business that you resent? Right. And it was, why am I resenting it? Well, because you've got hours there being put in. You're trying to put all the effort in and things aren't going the way you want it to go. And you start building this. I started building this resentment toward the results I wasn't getting, toward myself for not getting them, right? To all this built up stuff, and all that pressure was there where I just could not get myself unlocked. Because I was caught up in I just need to double down even more. And I hate the hustle muscle, but that's what was starting to happen. It was just like, oh, you just got to put in effort, right? More work. And I knew it wasn't efficient, but I could not get myself to stop it because I couldn't see the problem, which was I resented it. And as soon as I go like, oh, obviously I resent it, well, duh, of course you resent it, right? That's the next sort of stage with that. Of course I resent it, because why would you not resent it if this was what your life was like with it? Of course you're going to resent it, but it doesn't have to be that. That was just a choice you made, right? You can make other choices. There's like 18 other things you could do that are more beneficial. And of course, that's what you can do with the AI coaches. And so that's what I started doing. And that gave me instant clarity. Like it was a weird sort of healing moment where it's like within a minute and a half, I'm like, that's solved. Like, I get it. I'm aware of it. First thing I did was like, why did you, because I was confused. Like, why do you think, why was it resentment? And it told me, oh, because of what you wrote. And I was like, yeah, okay. You're absolutely right. Never mind. I see that now. But then instantly I didn't resent it anymore.
Yeah.
It was just, oh, there's an obvious next step. So I think using AI in that way took me from what do I need to do, right? How many blog posts do I need to write, to let's get focused on the right thing, which is let's talk about why you even think that's an option. Why? Let's not talk about how to do that. Let's talk about if you should do that, if this is what you're supposed to do, right? And how to make things better. And I think that's a vastly underutilized opportunity that that people don't use AI for, to get more of that clarity.
That's super interesting. I same. I resent certain things too. I resent that what worked for me 5 years ago doesn't work the same now. I resent all these things, and I totally get it. And and it's like you're just banging your head against the wall trying to figure out what can I do differently. But it's like almost like insanity. We're expecting different results by doing the same thing where the market has changed. I was just telling you earlier on this before the podcast, that we're getting the podcast downloads compared to the clip downloads are insanely disproportionate. There's a lot more people watching the clips of this podcast. And it's like, okay, do you get mad at that or do you embrace it? We talked about it in our book writing one, just our last episode, about the same thing. And I think that do you get mad at it or embrace it? Do you move forward? And the funny thing is we're going so forward with AI first that it makes sense that we would do this as well. AI first with the coaching, with getting clarity, getting those results, because how long could this go on, Mercer, if you didn't have it tell you that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would have been trying to solve the problem, which is really the symptoms, which is just patching like the old example of like, if your oil light goes on in the car and you just sort of put a piece of tape over it. Oh, it's solved. It's like, no, it's not. It's still there. You just can't see it. And that's I think that's what I was doing. Yeah. Right. For years, probably. Because it was such a that word clarity is a good choice, because it was a very clear oh, that's it, just unplug this. That's what the issue is, and you just know the sense of certainty and confidence that comes with just knowing oh, that's why I do that, because I think like this. And because you notice that you think in a certain way, your brain instantly goes, well, now that we know we do that, that's not useful. Here's a better way to look, and you shift perspective, and that gives you that different identity all of a sudden that you are, because now you're a person who thinks like this instead of a person who thinks like that.
Yeah, I love that. And so hold the word clarity in your minds, listener, because that is I'm going to open a loop for you, but I'm not going to close it yet, because I want to react to something else that you said too. And that is, you were talking about if you're just using a chat, like an LLM to chat with it, you're getting 3% versus the 97% of everything else when you have a specialized bot, when you're working with a specific clarity coach, which again, keep that thought, because we are going to be giving you a free clarity coach inside Profit School. It's already there. But you've touched on something that's really interesting to me, and that is the difference between common knowledge, like common sense or common knowledge, and expert knowledge. And I internalize this all the time, but most advice you get is common knowledge. Like most people say you should go to college, right? But that's not an expert opinion. That's everybody would say that. Hey, you should go to college and get an education, or you should get married when you're pregnant or something like that, or you should wait to have a child until you're ready. That's common knowledge. But that's from common experience, that's societal, but that's not actual things. So an LLM in general is just going to give you that common knowledge. It's going to tell you everything that a parent would tell you, a grandparent would tell you, most of the people in your life would tell you. That's probably what it's going to tell you, with a little bit more backing, with a little bit more ability to research the internet and stuff like that. And that's what it's going to do for you. Now, expert knowledge would be talking to a psychiatrist who has the experience, the PhD. They have a ton of patients in their log. That's what Mercer built. He basically built, and not a psychologist, let's say, or a coach. Who's the $1 million coach? Andy Grove or something, some guy who's I'm not even sure.
Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah, Tony. Whatever.
You can model anybody, which is kind of
you can model any coach, because there's enough of them out there transforming people's lives that you can get at that. And you can not just have one, you can have 50 of them. And we'll talk about what you built.
You know who I modeled was the character Wendy Rhoades.
Okay.
And what's the thing? Billions, the show.
Billions.
Right. Yeah. And just for people that aren't watching the show, like the whole concept is this is a high pressure trading floor. And so everyone's traders that are there, trading in the financial stock markets, everything else. And they have a coach. A lot of trading houses do have this. This is true, where they have a money coach that's there to keep the traders in the right mindset, because trading is such an emotional game. So they realize like that makes sense to keep people, mentally fit and at peak performance states. So my thing was, that's what I would like for entrepreneurs. So I want somebody to keep me mentally fit and challenge me with the hard questions and give me those perceptual shifts and have, and it do exactly what it did. But that was the model. So
nice.
I brought that up.
Yeah. Bill Campbell's the guy's name. $1 Trillion Coach is the book that I read about that. And it's Bill Campbell and how he was like the whisperer to all these different Silicon Valley companies. Everybody used him as their coach, basically. So you can channel Wendy Rhoades, you can channel Bill Campbell, you can channel Tony Robbins, or all of them. That's the cool thing about AI is you don't have to limit yourself to one. You can have them compete against each other. You can have them say, well, Tony says this and Wendy says that and Bill says that, right? But I want to go back to this difference between like just a chat window and that, because I said that you're further along in this area and that you have more experience, and that's you define why without even telling me why you're further along. And it's that is that I got hot on this for a while. I heard you were doing it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk to Gemini, and what I do is voice dictate everything that was happening. So we were at a 3-day conference. You and I had just met, and I talked for like 10 minutes 5 or 6 times. So I had an hour of me talking to Gemini about all the things that we talked about, summarizing your and my conversation, what I wanted to do with Profit School, what I learned on stage from the conversations or whatever. And I said, help me organize this and prioritize this. And it created like this living, breathing doc. It was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And it basically had, here's the things that you say are priorities, here's whatever. And then it's like, here's your priority 1 tasks, or high level priorities. And it was like 1 through 20. And then it was like, here's your medium ones. It was like 21 through 36. And then it was like, here's the lower priority ones, 37 through 150. And guess how many of those I got through like the first 6 on the high priority. And I've been doing these things, but I haven't looked at that document ever since because it's overwhelming. Mm. It's basically saying, so I was in this daily habit and then I missed the daily habit once. I didn't know how to activate it. I didn't turn this into like a project plan, and it just sort of sat there. So I can, and I haven't looked at the document in a month and a half. I might look at it again later on to see where I was at, but it was enough to get out of my head to come up with the first 5 things. And then I've just been in pure action mode now, which is fine. It actually, it did a pretty good job at that. But the funny thing is, if you asked 150 people, if you just talked for an hour to somebody about what you're doing, they'd probably give you the same priority list. It's general knowledge. They don't know exactly, like it's not strategic knowledge. It's just general. They're like listening to you and then they're just helping you sort it. That's what a basic coach can do. That's what talking to your parents could do, or talking to, your friends. That's what they would do. What Mercer's evolved into, this clarity coach, it just seems like it's so much more advanced than that, because it's not so much that it has a memory. It's just that it's more purpose driven and it's more probing to get to the point where instead of having you tell it what to do, AI is telling you what to do to get your result. So it's just a total backwards way of doing it. So I'm going to close the loop on the clarity coach. It is for free inside the Profit School community. You just go into ProfitSchool.com, join the free community piece, join us. And then in the free community part, there's our bots, and we have 3 bots available for you. One's a clarity coach, one is on how to get your pricing right, and the other one's how to get your offers right. So those are free AI bots that have the collective knowledge and wisdom of Mercer, me, and Tony Robbins, and Wendy Rhoades, and Bill Campbell, maybe in there. And those things are something you can use every day. And I would recommend making that a habit. And I want to get into now the benefits of making it into a habit and how you're using this, because you opened up a good loop for us. Now that we know that everybody can get what you're talking about, how can you give us some more background on how you're using this thing and how it's working for you?
Yeah, I'll come at it from a slightly different direction, but that's to give you some like, okay, here's how I would do what you tried to do before with your list. Is I build the bots, and the bots, they actually do have memory, which is kind of a nice system enhancement. But basically what it is the bot goes through and the bot is trained. It is built, right? And this goes back, and I'll take a step back. It goes back to ping pong prompting. We have to get clear on the results. And this is the number one thing with AI is too many people are just start using it without getting clear on the result as to what they are going to do with it first. So you use AI to get clear on what you want to do with AI. Essentially, right? First thing is get the result. So I'll go through a results build. I'll ping pong the prompts. So I can say, well, here's what I'm trying to do. I want this coach to do this, this, and this, and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I want the prompt that ultimately will help me to build that coach. So let's figure out. And it goes through this thing. And I probably spent 6 or 7 hours going back and forth with AI over days, playing around, really defining these results until it's like, all right, here's the prompt of the coach that you want. Then it's like, okay, cool. Now I have my instructions because AI will give you instructions. Here's how to build it. Here's the things you have to go deep research, add these together, make these knowledge documents. Here's the gem instructions. You get it all and you kind of build all that. What I would do then is exactly what you did with your priority list, except that you give that to the bot. And you're like, and you build it so it's expecting that. So you're like, hey, I'm going to give you a generic list of priorities, and you just sort of ramble on about whatever the thing is. And I do that all the time, where I just ramble on in a voice dictate, or if I'm on the computer, I can hit the little mic button and start talking to it, and just gibberish out all the stuff that's top of mind. I'll go through my Google Calendar and talk things through. Then I go to ClickUp and I talk things through, and I'm just kind of doing all of that. And then I'll like build, show me the list. It'll build me the list. Put that in a Google Doc, upload that to the bot. And the bot knows it's going to have that, right? It might even be knowledge. You make it permanent knowledge if you want. And so now it's got knowledge of what the priorities are. And it knows this is sort of, like you said, the status quo way of getting priorities. But it knows it's going to take status quo, and its job is to actually make that happen, right? In the best possible way. So breaking out all your components and trying to figure out, oh, well, actually, these 3 things can all be done at the same time if you do this one thing now. That was priority 37. But then 3, 4, and 5 also move now because you did 37 first, right? That it'll look for those sort of patterns if we ask it to. Yeah. Right? And that's why it's so important to determine the result up front. What do I want my experience from AI? What do I want the experience of AI to deliver to me? Let's define that. That's your result. And then the bot sort of, it's in a way it builds itself, where it's literally, okay, what's the prompt for that? What do I do for this? And if you have questions, you're like, what I'm trying to get this done. How would I do that? It'll tell you all of that stuff. And all you do is just follow along, and you're assembling stuff coming through. The reason I say that the bots that I use have memory is because at the end of every session, it'll do a data dump. And it'll say, okay, here's the progress. Here's what's going on. Here's what's still on the list. Here's what got covered. Here's some things I need you to update in the knowledge documents. And it'll dump all of that stuff out. And again, this is only for now. This is not forever, because this stuff will eventually just be all within the AIs. But for now, it'll dump that out, where I can copy and paste that into a Google Doc, right? So then when I start the new session, I upload the Google Doc. Yeah. And I'm like, here's the Google Doc. Where do we start? And it immediately, so it can keep a thread to itself. So I have all these different conversations. They're all separate conversations, but they are all connected. Wow. And you can see that, which is kind of cool. And then I kind of use it like a little mini journal. I'll date them all. With a date. So I know what the date of that conversation was with that coach that I'm using. And then what I'll do is I'll have one coach and I'm calling coaches consultants is another way to think about it, because I really do think about it like that. It's like, I don't want to have to do any thinking. I'm so done thinking, which just sounds funny with AI, because that's what everyone's freaked out about. It's like, no one's going to know how to think anymore. That is not true. Like with AI, you first learn to prompt, and then you prompt to learn. Yeah. Right. And I'm absolutely deeply embedded in the prompt to learn space right now. So with this, but you create the coaching consultant that's like, here's your one that prioritizes you and keeps your mindset right, and that you can complain to and whine to, and it goes, yep, I hear you, and we're still going to get this done, and here's why. And you naturally are motivated to get it fast and fun, right? That was one change I made, where instead of like, I wanted things to be easier, and that was the wrong question. I needed them to be fast and fun instead. When things became fast and fun, that's what I got. I didn't want easy stuff. I wanted fast and fun stuff. I don't care if it's hard. I just want it to be fast and fun, because if it's hard, I won't feel it's hard. It's fast and fun, right? So that helped me. But then one of the things would be like, well, like for the challenge, like we did a MeasureU challenge, right? ProfitSchool does challenges. Well, we've got the AI challenge bots that we built, that we took time to build, that actually help us with that. So that's where I'm sort of like going back and forth between the consultants, getting everything done with a virtual AI team that I am orchestrating. And I'm trying to get all my work done through. This is the whole AI first mentality. Everything I do is going through AI to get it done. So if I need to do a challenge or slides or something else, I'm like, that's great. Let's go to the AI slide bot that does that. Let's go to the challenge bot that does that. Or to your point, let's go to the AI copywriter bot that does that. right? The AI build bot that builds the pages, that sort of thing. And you're getting everything done through AI. So if I don't have a team member or a coach, that's the first thing I do is, okay, let's ping pong. Let's get clear on the results of what I'm actually looking for. Let's build that thing out. Now we've got this consultant that I can go to forever, right? That can handle anything I want. We talked in the last episode about books. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing now is building out the author. I'm going to be building out the publisher, the editor, the potential customers, the ones that hate books like this, right? I'm going to build out everything. And then I've got this little universe that I can now basically get the book written by me just guiding it, where I'm positive I'll polish a few words, but it won't sound like AI wrote it because it's so niche and nuanced and catered. I've literally built, it's like building layers upon layers upon layers on AI. So at that point, the results that you're getting are your results now. Yeah. They're not AI's version of your results, which is way down here at the LLM level where it sounds like AI, right? Because it is, like you said, it's generic status quo level here. Here, when you've done all of that, you've got to really, like your voice, your tone, everything's in there. It has to be. And because it is the best version of you at that point, that you get to work with. And that's kind of what I think about all the consultants. There's my consultant that's a really good author. There's my consultant that's really good at challenge funnels. There's my consultant that's good at copywriting. Here's my consultant that's a really good personal productivity coach. Here's a consultant that's really good at relationships, right? Or whatever the thing is you can create. And that's where you start going like, oh my, like you can literally do anything now. It is, it's not quite scary, but it's kind of like this weird anticipatory excitement that I have with everything where it's like, I don't know how to get it done. I just know that I can do it. That's a cool power to have with AI. And it's because of that process.
I love it. I'm just writing down ideas for newsletters because you just gave me a couple of them, like generalist versus specialist. That's a newsletter coming up. Sure. Learn to prompt to learn. Never heard you say that before.
That's not my thing. I wish it was. This is like an AI thing, but this is an evolution because that's what's happening with AI is people who are really, really good at AI, they know that's what you do. Yep. People who are not good at AI or that are saying like, oh, AI is going to make everybody dumb. All the negative stuff about AI. It's because they're not using it. Like I know they're not using it because if they were using it, they would not feel like this. Yeah. You feel a very different way when you use it properly. And if you're all negative about AI, which I have been, I get it. Where I was like sitting there for the first 2 years going, this is crap. It's going to sound like a high school kid reporting on the thing. And I get all that. But it's because of user error. I was not using it properly. It wasn't taking the time to do it. But now when you go, oh, that chat thing is just like fun splashing in the kiddie pool kind of AI. The real thing is the water in the kiddie pool. And you're like, oh, what else can I do with the water? Oh, I can put it through a high pressure hose and I can use it to clean my house, right? I can boil it, make steam and turn it into an engine. This is what people are missing. They're just splashing around in the water because water makes things wet and happens to be in the form of a pool. Yeah. So they go, well, that's what AI is. It's not. AI is the water, not the container. So then you shape the container that the AI is in, right? That's what I'm doing with little coaching bots and everything else. And oh my gosh, can you get some power out of that?
Yep. Quick. And that's a competitive advantage right now, right?
100%.
That is exactly what the competitive advantage is. That if you're saying that it's not good enough because you're doing generalist things, then guess what? You're just not you're only on the surface. And the longer you stay on the surface, the less advantage you have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And everyone's going to catch up, but boy, clock is ticking. Yep.
Yeah. I'll close out my mind with just saying, we mentioned AI as a productivity boost at the beginning. I sort of opened that loop as like, hey, we can talk about AI as a coach or clarity and AI for productivity boost. And honestly, you touched on something that I think is a perfect way to wrap it up, is that you mentioned that by just brain dumping all the things that you want to do and having it help you figure out priorities and saying, hey, you can do these 2 birds with one stone. Number 37 plus 4 and 5 will actually save you time. Yep. That is a productivity boost because you're only working on the right things. Yep. A lot of times people are not productive because they're working on the wrong things or they don't know what to do. So they're just going through red herrings and left and right, Basically, this is giving you a list of priorities ordered together, and that is what's going to be your productivity boost. Now, there's plenty of stuff out there, plenty of episodes of this podcast talking about the tools, how you can take one long video and turn it into short form video clips, how you can take a blog post and how you can put it out there, how you can do all these different things. Like AI can do all those things. You know about it. That's what almost all education, all the sound bites are about that. But before you go use those tools, use the Clarity Coach, because that's going to tell you which tool to use at the right place at the right time. And that is the magical piece of it, because that's how you get the productivity boost, not the tools themselves, the strategies. And the people who are going to give you strategies are people who are experts, not generalists. So that's my final thought for you.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Love it. And I'll say my sort of final thought on the process of that is you don't just tell AI like prioritize my stuff, because it will. And then if it's not right, ask it, why did it come up with that priority, and get its thinking? Because a lot of times that's really the prompting to learn part of it, is how is it thinking about that? Why did it produce that result for you if it's not the result that you want, or it wasn't the priority list that you thought it was going to be? Because then that's where the conversation is, oh, well, here's how I think about it. Let's challenge which one of us thinks better about it, right? Maybe it's got a better way. Maybe my way is a better way, right? But it'll do that. It'll say, well, here's why I think this, my way is better, or here's why I think your way is better, and here's this hybrid approach. That's the stuff you can get really, really fascinated with AI. And to Jeff's point, like that's a lot of the stuff we're doing at Profit School right now, is putting those into the AI agents that we've got there for you. So we're kind of taking the best of the best and condensing it down into the most useful parts of that, so that you can get this experience as well. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up this Profit School by MeasureU AI First podcast. Again, just conversation between Jeff and I. Hopefully you've learned a trick or two. Maybe you've even thought about a new thought. If so, please share it with others. Let them know that you've heard about it on the Profit School podcast. And we will see you on the next episode. Take care.